on what side of the aisle you're on, right? So
Yeah, you can't be in the middle.
can't be in the middle.
That's it. You
And
can't.
you might get ran over if you're in the middle.
You
So
know.
we're still talking about investing. We're still talking about the Russian invasion. We're still talking about the economy. And Hank let me know earlier today that some Russian oligarchs may be having their assets seized. And so we want to get everyone's thoughts on what is going on. And then at the very end, we'll talk about what you can or should do as a investor yourself.
Wow.
So, Hank, what are your thoughts in reference to the headlines that are swarming around us?
Um, I actually, and that's good you brought that up because I looked at it. I looked at an article yesterday about the Department of Justice going after the the homes, the yachts, and the jets of oligarchs, and there's a law that's on the books, um, and they'll be able to seize this property under the law that applies to terrorists and fugitives and terrorists.
That's
Okay.
crazy.
Now
Yeah,
there are people who say, "Well, they're not terrorists and they're not fugitives." Well,
right.
maybe relative terms, but the stipulation and the criteria might fit because of how the oligarchs are perceived by the U.S. government.
Yeah, that's interesting. Perception versus reality, right?
Well, yeah, but Leland, but the article I read yesterday says that for decades Russians have been investing heavily in the United States, and I don't know whether you'd be able to go to in your search engine and take a look at where a lot of um, property in the U.S. is owned by Russians.
Yeah.
It may not show that, but a lot of property. I think I heard between $500 and $700 million of property in New York is owned by Russian oligarchs. And I don't know whether you remember a few years ago when they were talking about there's a building in New York is 666 some street, and then there's something called the T Tower, and there was a place in Panama that and some property in Florida that seemingly may have had some Russian oligarch ties, where someone, I think there was a house in Florida where someone might have bought it for maybe 8 million or 10 million or 14 million, but sold it, some time later for 50 million. Now, and I saw that and I said, you know what, boy, I wish I could sell my house for, 10 times or 5 times its value. But value is relative.
Value is
And it's
relative.
relative in the sense that whatever someone is willing to pay or whatever it is that you're willing to accept in the deal, then that's a deal. But you'd have to ask yourself, why would someone pay that much more for something than it's worth if you understand value, you understand time and value, and you understand return on investment.
Well, again, when you are income uh, X from your country's currency,
Hmm.
and if you want to win on the currency exchange, there you go. Now, if you also are looking for another way to, I don't know, launder, there's an opportunity there too.
Hmm. Hmm.
One of the articles that we're speaking in reference to right now, I mean, just 63. What they found. This is in 2017, and they were basing this of contributors to the Trump administration for campaigns. But in 2017, they
Ah,
reviewed that 63 people with Russian passports had, a little bit under 100 million of property, and 7 of those properties came out to be Trump-branded luxury hotels or towers.
oh wow,
So
wow. Well, and that goes, and I hear that, and it goes back to Congress. No, it was the Supreme Court approving a case having to do with dark money in politics,
yeah,
and they basically opened the floodgates to dark money in politics. And I think you will agree that and if if you can, and they say our politicians can't be bought, but that's a lie.
oh,
But if you've got enough money to buy all of the vacant media space or ad space on various channels, then your opposition has a snowball's chance in hell in getting his or her word out.
yeah.
Okay? Now,
So
the candidate, go ahead, sir.
no, 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 no. I was just going to say no. Go ahead. I'll let you finish. And I'll bring this up next.
I was going to say that most of the candidates did not have that type of financial capacity. Prior to the last guy, the candidate that had supposedly had the most financial capacity didn't win, and that was Mitt Romney. I think he was worth like 250 million, and he brought a lot of his money to the table. But that was a $1 billion campaign. I think that was the first $1 billion campaign for president of the United States. And it's not just happening at that level; it's happening at state governments and senatorial races and U.S. representative races. It's just absolutely crazy. So if I'm contributing $100,000 to your campaign, I'm expecting something. Okay, and I've got some influence.
So I wanted to make people aware that are watching that if they wanted to kind of verify the information that Hank and I are touching on, that they can go to a website called opensecrets.org. So that's opensecrets.org. You go to opensecrets.org and you're actually able to quote unquote look at what they consider to be dark money. So this is how they have dark money donors. You're able to look to see how much is contributed. So this is as an example, in a 3-year span here, you had $323 million from this organization and so forth. So, someone is to donate $100,000 to a campaign, you are expecting something. And if
Hmm.
someone to donate, I don't know, $300 million to a campaign, they are also expecting something. So, this website is interesting. I mean, just real quick, just for humor purposes, hey, just tell
Hmm.
me a position, either your current or past, and I'll just type that into the search bar right here.
Mitch McConnell,
Okay, all right, here we go. Mitch.
my friend Mitch
Did I spell that? Did I spell his last name correct?
McConnell,
MCC.
McConnell.
Okay. 2 L's, 2 N's, and 2 C's, right?
MCCON. I don't know.
Hold on 1 second, guys.
Try it with one. Yeah, just try it with one.
Yeah, I'll make sure
One
that I don't
N and two L's.
have,
Ah, okay.
I'm not the best speller. So, okay, here we go. So, again, this web allows you to see a lot of stuff. So we can have here campaign finance summary. We can also look at his contributors. We can also find out things like net worth and I mean, you can find out voting history. et cetera. Personal financing.
Well,
So the
see,
reason for the personal
his
financing. Go ahead, sir.
uh no, his wife comes from money in in China.
Hey, I don't know. Well, this is this, and
I'm
so what supposedly happens is everyone who is in who was part of Senate, Congress, they are expected to submit their financial statements every year.
Yeah, it's
That's
a
what's
requirement.
the requirement. Yeah.
Hmm.
So the last time submitted was in 2018. He has not
Oh
submitted since,
wow.
but based on the numbers from 2018, he's ranked seventh in the Senate as far as this. Um, and then it shows some of the things that he's vested in. Municipal bonds is one, index funds as well, and then just look at asset liabilities for each person. You can download it and see what they have chose to be vested in. Now, one thing that I know for certain is that what they have their personal name vested in is much
Hmm.
different than what a business or a trust is vested in. Because technically, if it's a business
Ah.
or a trust, it's not. You don't have to report that to this.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh. I,
Any
yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. So, and they all probably have a trust.
a blind trust,
Yeah.
preferably.
Well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. But it's not blind.
Yeah. I don't know how many eyes the trust has, so
If you can influence it, it ain't blind.
yeah, no comment. No comment. So if you wanted to see, who all openly contributed to someone's campaign, you can do that as
Hmm.
well on this website because it's public knowledge. You can see how much they contributed, et cetera, et cetera. So that kind of lets you know, in my opinion, heading towards. So if I find out that out of the top five contributing entities, that four out of the top five are healthcare companies, that kind of lets me know, like, oh, this person might be interested in healthcare, right?
Hmm.
Maybe speak talk frequently to healthcare companies, and that could be possibly a thing. So you
Oh,
can
that,
see,
then I'm sorry. I was just thinking of there's a guy from West Virginia. Who's an advocate for the carbon industry. Um, anyway, I'm old, but I'm not feeble. Um, oh
I will
man.
say this: we can look up any. So basically, this website is
Okay.
open to everyone. It's called
Okay.
OpenSecrets.org. You guys can look at it, and I want to go back because we're talking about just how money is circulating, and we're going to tie this all in at the very end about the
Hmm.
economy. So um, going back to this part, despite with the connection with the Trump properties and the previous and all that stuff, what this does not show, so the $100 million, quote unquote, give or take, of property, um, does not include businesses.
Okay.
It does not include trust that maybe have beneficiaries of individuals who are in Russia, vice versa, right? So this is only from things you can see that are connected to someone's name. So if I
Hmm.
were someone, just by basic economics, it's $100 million connected to 63 people from a certain country, then you're probably going to be looking at, if you include businesses and again trust, but you can't touch the trust, but at least the businesses, you're probably looking at 10 times that amount because we're only talking about 63 people here that they can actually
Okay.
find as of that time. So yeah,
Okay. Whew.
yeah, it's interesting. So it's very interesting, Hank. What are your thoughts based on open secrets, based on the 63 people? I mean, what comes to mind?
Well, it um again, I didn't know the site existed. I know that there was a lot of interesting money in politics, and if it's in politics here in America, it's in politics everywhere.
everywhere.
So if we go back to what's happening in Ukraine, um, I because a lot of people who live in Ukraine are Russian, and a lot of people that live in Russia are Ukrainian. They are having somewhat, in my opinion, a quasi civil war,
Yeah.
and that one country, based on what I've seen, and I don't just look at American news. I look at PBS. I look at British news. I watch Australian news. I watch Indian news, and I'm hearing from all of these sources similar conversation about um, though the though the Ukrainians are giving are performing admirably,
Hmm.
they are outgunned and outmanned, and and they're being attacked with heavy weaponry, and they're not attacking back outside the bounds of Ukraine. Um, and being having a military background, those artillery rounds and rockets and aircraft, all of that, those projectiles are indiscriminate. So they're not just hitting the fighters, the people who are defending Ukraine. They are hitting buildings and killing women and children. And for the most part, people who are leaving, the million people who left the country,
Yeah.
for the most part, are those who can afford to leave. They've got some type of linkage to where they're going. And I said, what about the if a million is gone, there's still 43 million people who are subjected to atrocities. And so with the oligarchs, they have been no, they've been recipients of whatever that's been happening within Russia for years and years and years, and they are part of the political, and in my mind, the political and economic structure of Russia, and Putin's cronies, and as a result of that, everyone that can be identified not by the just by the U.S. but world powers, all of be they the EU or in countries that are not part of EU, are also throwing up some flags and hindrances to go after money. And um, had Ukraine not been invaded, for the most part, the oligarchs would be dumb, fat, and happy. And that's not the case.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, everything you mentioned is true. Yeah,
You
I
know.
can't deny that.
But the question is that I keep asking myself, why? What is it that makes Ukraine so important or so valuable that you would be willing to destroy it and its people to bring it under your control?
So I think that's interesting, and I like to look at things from others' perspective as well. Like at least I try to, and
Hmm.
from I can see from another perspective that you are somewhere. If you're the leader of a country and your country is not able to be as competitive, with others, then you
Mm-hmm.
might look at it as an opportunity to become more competitive. Unfortunately, I mean, it sounds silly,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the only thing I could think of, is that this is in hopes to become more competitive.
And I can understand that, but there's a after World War II, based on what I've seen and heard and read, there was a new world order, and there were certain countries that were given um, greater power than some of the other countries. Russia, China, um, the UK, the US, and I forget who the other one was. I don't know whether it was Australia or France. It probably wasn't France because they tried to do some neutrality during the war, but they have veto power on a lot of stuff that happens in the UN. So you've got the UN, you've got EU, and you've got NATO. Um, EU is a European Union, and they look at things from an economic perspective. And I forget exactly how many countries uh, are members of the EU. Not all of them, but many of them are part of the EU. Then you've got NATO, and they look at things from a militaristic perspective, and there are 30 countries that are there. And there are countries in NATO that are not in the EU. And then you've got the outsiders. Okay. Now, the crazy thing about it is in the UN, Russia currently sits as the head of one of the committees, one of the powerful committees, and I don't remember whether it's the Equal Rights or Civil Rights or something Rights Commission, okay, and Russia is violating everything, the principles that the EU has established for countries to be not necessarily members, but what they consider to be um, proper actions, inactions, interactions between nations. And for the last since the fall of the Soviet Union as such, Russia has flexed its muscles and its might whenever it chose to. It did things in Syria, in Georgia. Um, um, it did something in Kyrgyzstan. It invaded Afghanistan. All of these things. And at some point in time, from my perspective, is that if you're not willing to stand up for something, then you may become victim of what you're unwilling to stand up for. And I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact quote, and I might call the countries by the wrong name. Forgive me for that. But something like it. First, they came for the Italians, and then they came for the Jews, and then they came for the Irish, and then they came for me. And you could put any country in the place. But the point is that if you're not willing to stand up for something, you'll fall for anything. And we just have to sit back and stop being, to me, being selfish and put everything in the captions of culture, religion, race, ethnicity.
I mean, it sounds simple, but I don't know that people are ready for that. One of
But
the, I mean,
go ahead.
I mean,
Hmm.
it sounds crazy, but I'm not sure people are ready for that. I feel as though that to, they want to have a divide because it helps.
Helps what?
It helps them economically.
Is it? But I don't know whether it's economically. Somebody wants to be in control. I think it's control.
Mm.
Do you? I don't know whether you realize that um, prior to World War II, there were certain people from certain countries that were not considered Caucasian,
Okay.
and based on the origin where the countries are located, um, it makes a lot of sense. But after World War II, there are certain countries that that people have been able to change their identity.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
There are certain countries in South America where the people are not considered. They may be considered Latino, Hispanic, whatever the nomenclature is. But when you look at people in Colombia, in Argentina, and Venezuela, there are certain countries where, okay, it's different. You look at people in Cuba, they're considered different. You look at people in Puerto Rico, they're considered different. You look at people in Panama, they're considered different. They may fit the caption, but they're treated differently. And then you look at people in Haiti. Here's the crazy one: the Dominican Republic and Haiti are on the same piece of ground.
That's right. Same
Okay,
rock. Yeah.
same rock. On the right hand side of the rock, depending on how you look at it, they are considered okay. And on the left hand side of the rock, they're not considered as okay. And it baffles me to just,
Yeah. That's true. I mean, all those things are true, and they vote differently. They receive different funding as from other countries. Um,
mhm, mhm.
it impacts the entire thing. Um, and I believe it is still is for basically some form of control that is connected to economics.
Okay,
Speaking of,
I won't argue that. Hmm.
oh, and speaking of uh, that connection, just going to just kind of to bring it full circle. There's with all this abounding, right? Um,
Hmm.
from what we can tell, as far as the Federal Reserve is concerned, there will be uh, the raising of the interest rate. Period.
Oh yeah, well yeah, we've known that, but
We know that,
with
and
a sense of
yeah,
urgency now.
with a sense of urgency now. So
Hmm.
things are heating, and I would look forward one, but expect them to do something uh, because you're earning less right now. You're getting
Well,
less.
couple the interest rates to inflation,
Yeah.
and there are some major causes for inflation. Okay, because
Yep.
again, there's a cause and an effect.
Yep.
And I think we talked about it the other day. COVID may have been precipitous as part of the process. Okay, and that caused some ripple, and then from that ripple came unemployment. From that ripple came logistics problem. From that came stimulus money. From that came inflation. From that came high interest rates. And it's the idea that there is a cause and an effect that may not be apparent to people. And then once we feel the pinch, then we're throwing our hands up and going like, well, what's something wrong? Well, I think we all need to be a little bit more astute and we just need to pay attention to, and not be so quick to say, well, Leland was wrong because he didn't do something, or Hank was wrong because he didn't do something. But get the facts. Let the facts speak. And then if the facts say that, then fine. That's all well and good. But we have to stop saying that, hey, the people in Ukraine are this, or the people in this, or that. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. But one thing that's not crazy, some countries that were reluctant
Hmm.
to take any action against Russia last week are now stepping to the table to join everybody else. And I don't know the reason for that, other than there's a moral fiber that I think eventually presents itself to all of us. Because when we start to see young children, or women or old people that are being killed for no reason other than they were on the wrong piece of land at the wrong time, where is our humanity? And that's the piece that I always want to come back to. For those who feel so righteous, where is your humanity?
So we want to end today's discussion with again letting you guys know, and I kind of, it seems like we're going back to the economics over ethics.
Mm. Oh, that hurts.
So ultimately, as a listener, we want you to decide where when it comes
Mm,
to
mm,
economics. And
mm, mm.
we'll catch you guys in
Yeah.
the next one.